When my maternal grandparents emigrated from Tsarist Siberia to the Sandwich Islands, they were recruited by industrial plantation owners, but they were attracted by the opportunities of the land of the free and the home of the brave. All, unfortunately, seasoned with a dose of the poisonous root of racism. Oh, but wait. Maybe you don't know where the Sandwich Islands are, or why they were called the Sandwich Islands in the first place. Well, they weren't named the Sandwich Islands because they were a floating bunch of sandwiches, nor were they named the Sandwich Islands because the locals served platters of delicious club sandwiches. No, the story of the Sandwich Islands goes back to the 18th century, the high water mark of British imperialism, and an English explorer by the name of Sir James Cook. In January of 1778, Cook was sailing around the Pacific Ocean looking for some new lands to claim and native people to exploit in the name of the British Crown. He stumbled across a chain of lovely tropical islands. He named those islands the Sandwich Islands in honor of Lord Sandwich, who was one of the sponsors of Captain Cook's many voyages around the world. Today, we call the Sandwich Islands the Hawaiian Islands. Oh, one more thing. The food that we call a sandwich was actually named for that same guy, the 4th Earl of Sandwich. Lord Sandwich loved to gamble. In fact, he loved gambling so much that he hated to take time out from his games to eat. But he still got hungry. So he ordered a servant to bring him a slice of beef between 2 pieces of bread. Yep, that combination of meat and bread became known ever after as the sandwich in all its glorious forms. Now, Hawaii was originally a scattering of separate independent islands. Then, in 1795, King Kamehameha bound them all together into the Kingdom of Hawaii. That kingdom was doomed. Hawaii was, and still is, a botanical paradise. Beautiful flowers, delicious fruits. It is also a great place to grow sugarcane. Around the time of the American Civil War, the sugarcane magnates of the world, mostly in the United States, began to exploit Hawaii's profitable sugarcane fields. Well, it did not take long for them to push the native Hawaiian rulers aside and start cashing in. Their combination of global cash, ruthless industrialists, and American colonial ambitions were just too much for the peaceful Kingdom of Hawaii. Within decades, the Americans running the show denied native Hawaiians the vote, called in the Marines, overthrew the Kingdom of Hawaii, and in 1898 made Hawaii a territory of the United States of America. That's not a pretty story, but it's too complicated to go into further detail here. However, the role that racism played does deserve a bit more explanation. In the late 19th and early 20th century, the men who were running the United States became obsessed with this concept of race. They came to believe that God had granted the white race a mandate to expand westward and take control of lands occupied by inferior races. This divine mandate was called manifest destiny. Well, after the mainland was subdued, many thought that America should keep on heading west, fulfilling its destiny across the Pacific Ocean. At about the same time, the theory of scientific racism gained popularity. Scientific racism taught that peoples of the world do not just look different. They were different in every attribute that defines a human being, especially intelligence and morals. The so-called races were ranked, with white folks naturally at the top. Hawaii's industrial plantations originally exploited native Hawaiian laborers in the sugarcane fields, but large numbers of them died from new diseases brought by the colonialists. The sugarcane industrialists next imported Japanese and Chinese laborers. There were two problems with that. First, the Japanese were a rambunctious lot. They dared think, for example, that they were entitled to fair wages and fair treatment. Some even went on strike. This attitude of the Japanese laborers did not fit well with the plantation owners. Second, this labor unrest coincided with the passage of the first Immigration Exclusion Act ever passed by the United States. It was aimed at keeping Asians out of the New World. So the lords of the sugarcane plantations looked around for a new source of labor. They also wanted Hawaii to be a white territory, and Russia was thought of as a white country. And that's why Russians were recruited to work in Hawaii. History is full of irony. The irony in this case is that one of the white Russians, my grandmother, turned out to be Asian after all. But Hawaii was not anything like Russia. It had a tropical climate. The Russians were used to the icy pleasures of Siberia. As a result, many of the Russians recruited to Hawaii soon decided that the west coast of the United States was a cooler place to be, both literally and metaphorically. My maternal grandfather, Foma Franco, his wife Anna, and my mother Violet were among them. They left Hawaii for the mainland. After a few years in San Francisco, they moved to Seattle, Washington, which had a large and growing Russian community. Well, we'll pick that story up in a future episode of Fire and Ice, the story of an all-American family. Sha-na-na-na-na-na-na, sha-na-na-na-na.